Hi there. I wasn't able to catch the EA Play Livestreams live while they were happening, so there's not going to be a live reaction for this press conference of sorts. Basically, I was out of town with a couple of my friends and we didn't get back in till late, so I watched the EA Play Livestreams, the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order gameplay reveal, the Apex Legends Season 2 stuff, and the Battlefield 5 Chapter 4 updates. Let's start off with the big thing, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Shane had actually texted me earlier in the day. He was watching it live and he had told me that the game looks like a mix of Prince of Persia, Dark Souls, and Star Wars The Force Unleashed. And I think that's a really accurate summary of what the game is like. There's a lot of platforming, climbing, sort of like Uncharted. That's where like the Prince of Persia DNA is. Dark Souls for a number of reasons. One, the developers, they keep referring to this game as having thoughtful combat. And I've never really understood what that meant. It was sort of an ambiguous term. But watching it in this context, it seems definitely inspired by From Software and the Soul series. It's more slow moving, you need to dodge, you need to pick your times to strike carefully. Also, there's little things in the gameplay that sort of reflect this as well. One of them is the projectile speed of blasters. I noticed almost immediately that the stormtroopers, when they were shooting, the blasters were actually moving like pretty slow. Sort of in the same vein as the archers in Dark Souls. When they shoot bow and arrows, the arrows kind of just sort of float through the air. It's sort of like that. It gives the player the time to be able to use like their force powers to manipulate the blasters and stuff like that. The other thing that sort of reflected the Souls DNA to me was enemy placement. It seems like they're definitely trying to structure each encounter, and they do that by placing enemies. So like a lot of times in Dark Souls, you'll be in a hallway and there'll be like two towering knights that are gonna come at you and you need to try to handle both of them at the same time. There was a number of moments when you could see that each of the enemies was deliberately placed with intention. There was one part where the main character goes up against one of the new black armored troopers, and there's this trooper next to him, and whenever he goes in to fight, there's a trooper that he didn't see that comes and hits him. There's some ranged troopers up above that are shooting projectiles, so it sort of reinforces a lot of stuff that we see in From Software's titles. That said, the game looks pretty good. Obviously this was alpha gameplay, so there was a couple of just like glitches and pacing issues, stuff like that. But I think the game looks really strong, and depending on what comes out around the time, I think it launches in November, depending on what comes out around then, I could definitely see myself picking this up. I know they have a little bit more to show in the Xbox presentation, which is happening today, so we shall see what else they have to show for Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Next up is Apex Legends. Apex Legends is a game that I play with my friend Declan a lot, and we get pretty into it, so I was pretty excited to hear that they had some new content coming. First off, the new weapon, the L-Star. Not much to say on this. It's a new weapon. I'm glad that they're adding more content into the game. Another returning weapon from Titanfall 2, and it's a gold tier care package weapon, sort of like the Mastiff or the Kraber. So that seems cool. It seems like there's multiple different fire modes that it has, and it can open doors and stuff. So yeah, it looks cool, and I'll always welcome new weapons. I don't really pay for the Battle Pass on Battle Royale games. It's just not really my thing. I don't need to get super invested in the cosmetics and all that, so it doesn't really seem all that worth it to me. So a lot of the stuff that they were talking about with the new Battle Pass, I didn't really have too much to say on it. It didn't really apply to me as a player. But the thing that did excite me was the new character they announced, Watson. She's this engineer support class character who can put up these fences. And the fences are really cool because they were saying if any enemies walk through the gates, it automatically pings them to the team that set the gates down. So it basically acts as like a tripwire, allowing the people that place them down to know exactly when a squad may be coming into an area that they've reinforced. She also has this really cool ultimate that you can put down that destroys incoming projectiles, which is a really good addition. I know there's several times when Declan and I am playing and we get into the middle of a heated fight and then a Bangalore ult comes in and that thing just feels like it stretches out for the entire map. So it'll be really nice to be able to just drop something down that'll be able to take out those shots along with incoming grenade spam, because I think grenade spam is a big problem with a lot of encounters. Sometimes people just stock up grenades and then it's just an endless onslaught of grenades and no actual fighting. So overall, the Apex Legends stuff was all really strong, and I'm excited to get into Season 2 whenever it comes out in July, I think they said. I think it's early July. And Battlefield 5 was the last segment. Probably the most underwhelming, in my opinion. They were just showing off some new maps. They had a trailer last week that showed off little clips of each of these new maps, so these were more of like a somewhat dive into how the metagame of each map is going to be played. Like there's one that's on like a mountaintop in Greece, and it's more vertical and infantry based. There's a wide open level that's been taken from the war stories. That'll be like the classic Battlefield experience. They're bringing back a version of Metro, Operation Metro. Those were all nice things to see. I am a little upset that it seems like they're taking a lot of locations from the war stories and packaging them as new maps. That always just kind of irks me. Like, I feel like I want to go to new places, so whenever I see a new map that's based on something that's already in the game, I just kind of feel like, why wasn't this here, like, at launch? That's just a minor nitpick with it. I mean, I appreciate the variety of the maps that they're going for and the variety of gameplay styles, because I think some of the maps in Battlefield 5 get too repetitive in their approach. Just get a plane or get a vehicle and drive around. So I'm glad that they're injecting some more infantry-focused maps into the game. And the other big thing they talked about coming in fall is the Pacific Theater. So the entrance of the American and Japanese armies, and I think that's really cool. That's going to add a lot of different variety into the game, because right now it's just like British and Germans. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, the war was a big war and it involved a lot of people, so it's nice that we're finally getting a bunch of the bigger players getting involved along with British and German armies. All the new vehicles and the weapons are going to be pretty cool. There's a lot of really iconic American World War II weapons, so those will be fun to use. They didn't show a whole lot in terms of the Pacific stuff. They have a lot of concept art and they're clearly early on in planning phase for it, but they said that they're going to have 3 maps and one of them is going to be Iwo Jima, which is really cool. The concept art that they had for it looked really cool, and I'd be excited to play on all the new Pacific maps whenever they get released. They also talked about a focus on the amphibious vehicles, which whenever I heard that, I was like, huh, that's right, Battlefield 5 doesn't have a whole lot of like boat-centered stuff, so that'll definitely add a whole new layer of gameplay into Battlefield 5, something that it's kind of been missing. So yeah, these are just my short impressions on the EA Play live streams. Overall, pretty good, to be honest. Typically EA is really hit or miss, and they only have like 1 or 2 things that are worth talking about. Granted, they had 3 additional streams about FIFA, Madden, and The Sims. I have no investment in any of those, so I just decided to skip them. But I liked a lot of what they talked about in these 3 streams. I have some minor nitpicks here and there with stuff, but overall, I think all 3 of the things that they talked about were really good, and it's definitely going to be the things that people are talking about the most when it comes to EA. If you liked the video, check out all the other videos that we have. We are doing a bunch of E3 content, reactions, impressions like this one, and more. So if you enjoyed, stick around, and happy E3 week.